Hello, everybody. Happy morning. This is Anne. Welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips, where we will get a disproportionately high portion of Quindy with an atomic level of Justin and John. Is it Pirate Day? Well, it is Pirate Day. It's at least here in the stream, but I don't know if it's some part of some larger Pirate Day. So I'm not sure what you mean there, Pendrake. Probably you just mean that it's Pirate Day for here, but there are Pirate Days, you know, like Talk Like a Pirate Day, things like that. I don't know what dates those are, but anyway, that's where we are. Is it National Lobster Day? So it's not really piratey, but it could be related indirectly to pirates because saltwater. Okay, sure. My brain can deal with that. My brain is just like, this is one of those mornings where you're already running late and then shit happens that you have to like actually clean up and pay attention to. And then you're even later and then you remember it's Alpaca Day and then you're like, ah! And that's pretty much me right now. Right now, that's what my brain is doing, guys. I wear suntan lotion. Nomad Zeke, thank you. Except most suntan lotions that are high level like irritate my skin, so. But still, I'm getting a nice tan. Like, I gotta say, you can't really tell on screen because you can't see how white the rest of me is. But yeah, I'm getting a nice tan this summer. Oh, nice. Yeah. Egg roll, iced tea, and ballpoint pen day. Those go together. Like, that's fine. Like, you can have an iced tea with your egg roll and scribble in your journal with your ballpoint pen. Yeah. Although, now I want to know what National Fountain Pen Day is because that's my pen. That's my journal pen, is a fountain pen. Because I love fountain pens. I have since college when I discovered, you know, that I could just buy one. Although my early fountain pens were fraught with peril because we all know cheap fountain pens are kind of... But now I have a very nice fountain pen, and it's my heart pen. All right. However, it is showing its age. I may have to replace it eventually. Saturday is National Cherry Tart Day. International Picnic Day. Well, oh, it's Sushi Day? That's when my niece's party is. I bet she's not going to have sushi. Much as she loves sushi, I bet that we're not having sushi for her party day because my mother would just like go, ah. Mom is not into raw food. She does not believe it is food. I would do sushi day. You better betcha. I'm going to tell Lauren her party's on the National Sushi Day and we should get a sushi platter. I'll tell her, I'll actually text my brother after this and say, hey Pete, tell Lauren that her party is on National Sushi Day and that we need to get a sushi platter for the party so that we can gross out Mom. That will totally happen. I can dream. I can dream. Otherwise, I would totally be on that and like getting sushi that day because sushi's expensive, so I don't get it very often, much as I love it and would eat it every day if I could. Oh, okay. That's not dust. That's rub off. That's fine. It's on her head where the hat goes on. Too early. Yeah, the 1940s versions of fountain pens were inferior. They were very messy. And less precise. So I totally am into like a good ballpoint, although I actually prefer liquid ink. But it's the same kind of, same kind of tech. But yeah, good, you know, then my favorite pen are probably, what have I got here? I've got the gel. I think it's the Pilot. It's the Pilot G2 .38. And it's a liquid ink ballpoint. I also like the Uniball Signo. But lately I've really liked the Pilots. They feel a little more comfortable. I like how they flight. How they, too early to think of sushi. You'd have breakfast sushi with your coffee? I would too. I've got to admit. Of course, I'm not having coffee. I'm having tea. And tea does go with sushi, I would say, better than coffee. So I do think you have a point there. You have a point. Let's see. Where's my happy little Nod Bone color and my happy little Creamy Ivory color? I think we might do a lot with just the Creamy Ivory today, but we're going to play around. We still need to highlight some of this. We're going to do the white today. I totally forgot to like base coat the lines and the little eye hook things, which are going to be gold. Totally forgot. Totally just ignored the fact that those existed. This beer day thing. Alrighty. So what we probably have here on these lapels and versus the scarf thing is a little bit of a texture difference. Probably have more of a linen-y weave here, and we might have more of a light kind of maybe lacy weave here. I do not yet understand lace because I only just started knitting, so I'm probably not going to try to do a lace pattern, but I may suggest it by stippling. I find that probably a lot of lace, unless it's very, very big lace, would be out of scale on a piece. Unless it was a very large bust. That is fair, Carnico. You can have the veggie sushi. I do like a good, like, cucumber roll. Like, I do. When the cucumber is marinated properly and it's really, like, tasty. Has good tangy flavor almost. I like that. All right. So let us get our... I'm going to get the gnawed bone out and the creamy ivory. Though I'll probably use most of the creamy ivory. I'm going to say that if you're eating something else and it's a national, like, pot sticker day or a national something day and you decide maybe a burger instead, I'm saying that you're not in the spirit of that particular day. You could still be in the spirit of National Beer Day, but you're going to miss the trifecta there. I need to go buy some sake because that's actually my fill-in for... I cook with it, actually, a lot. All right, so let's get some creamy ivory, some gnawed bone, and some pure white. As I recall, yeah, we made this color with gnawed bone, so we were using kind of a Sticks Purple and Russet Brown mix for our dark shadows, and then we came up with gnawed bone, a little bit of... Shield brown, and then just plain up gnawed bone. So now, as I go further up, I'm going to be going back to gnawed bone, get up to the creamy ivory, and up to pure white. And if you are looking for a kind of a cream-colored triad, this would be a warm cream triad for you all, with the gnawed bone and the creamy ivory and the pure white. And it should be pretty evident that this would work because the gnawed bone is very close to the old stained ivory, which is canceled, which used to be the shadow of creamy ivory's triad. So that should be a pretty self-evident, like, triadic thingy-who's it. Alrighty, so let's get some water into these. I'm going to start at a 2-to-1 on these. Although I'm going to actually take it down to a 4-to-3 on the pure white. And I'm probably going to add more water anyway because these are off whites, and as such they will have higher coverage, and I will have to fight with them more to get them to layer, but I want to kind of do texture, so I'm okay with that. That's funny, Prophecy. Hope you're using a cheap sake. Otherwise that could get expensive. But that's actually a pretty smart, I mean, as far as it goes, I mean, if you don't want to use a petroleum-based product and you want to use a natural alcohol, if it works, awesome. Maybe I'll make a note of that. Ha, Carnico. Clavicus, thank you. 26 months. Insane. Well, no, they don't need to agree. Pendrake, it can be British National Beer Day and U.S. National Beer Day. They're two different nations. This means that probably there are various beer days around the globe, and you could probably celebrate like at least a dozen or two national beer days. You would just be celebrating England's National Beer Day, or Swahili Land's National Beer Day, or Patagonia's National Beer Day, you know? Yeah, see, I'm with Clavicus. We probably have actually like 24 beer days, right, Miniatures Den? Like, we're talking about National Beer Days, and Pendrake was like, wait, the US and the UK can't agree. But, I mean, being that they're separate nations, I think every nation should have a National Beer Day, and we should be able to celebrate every one. Also, welcome. Yes, there we go. Nomad Zeke, this is your assignment. Find at least 12 National Beer Days around the globe to list for a future stream. Well, that's UK versus British, American spelling. I had to laugh because when I had my latest beta reader go through, or my latest editor go over my manuscript the other month, she dinged me for using British spellings. And I'm like, can't I use British spelling for gray if I happen to prefer it? And she's like, it'll throw off American readers. I'm like, but are all my readers American? So I'm kind of like on the fence there because I prefer the British spelling of gray with the EY. And I have to wonder if my readers are really going to care as long as I'm consistent. I mean, obviously, as an American reader, I read British fiction regularly. I'm a mystery. I like mysteries. So there are a lot of really good British mystery writers. But yeah, so I can't really believe that, like, that was that important. So let's do a little texture here. So we're using our, and I'm probably not, I'm just testing this to make sure that I do indeed see how much of this gnawed bone I actually had on this white. We're starting with this color, we'll go to that. And I want to have a little bit of a linen texture on this lapel. So we're going to get real close, and we're going to get real in focus. Yes, we're staring at her chest. Get over it, folks. All right, let me grab my the gnawed bone color, which again is very close to stained ivory that was canceled in the MSP line. But any warm, medium cream color would work. Yeah, see, I agree, Prophecy. Like, I didn't like, even as a kid, I didn't like Gray. Like, I didn't get it. Yeah, we spell gray differently, and you have the correct spelling, Kerniko, as far as I am concerned. See, yeah, Agent Marvel, I'm with you. And I think that, actually, I hate to date us, but I think the older you are, the more used to the British spelling you may be. I have noticed this. So I think this is a fairly recent effort at standardization. So we're using our gnawed bone. And I did add a little bit of the cream and ivory and kind of do a little bit of a spot mix there. It's thinned down about 2 to 1, paint to water. And I'm just going to do some quick horizontal lines first, mostly because this position is pretty comfortable for me. I can do thin little lines. And the finer you can make your lines, the finer the texture will turn out. So when you've gone over the surface once, and if you find that you've got some heavier lines and you want to fix that, you can actually go over it a second time to kind of mix up that texture, kind of overlap. It'll make it look like you have a tighter texture. Just a little bit. So it's like layering, but you're leaving a little bit of your artifacts. So if you have problems with layering and that you're trying to get a smooth blend and you can't, or you're having trouble doing it, like, embrace textures, because you don't need to do smooth unless you're doing something like skin. Then you've got to embrace the smooth layering. Especially for young female skin. Some people would argue that for older people, and for, anybody whose pores are large, or, you can leave a little bit more texture, right? It looks fine. But for young women, it's typically you really want it to be smooth. So now I could have painted her as if she was a bit older and gone for more lines and more texture on her skin, but it really would have aged her fast. Interesting. Yeah, maybe it is location. Yeah, see, that's how Ed remembers it, Marvel, is like Gray is names and Grey is colors. Like, that, actually, that's why Reaper's grays are all spelled with the Grey. And notice, nobody has ever complained about it, by the way. Ed didn't even know it was, like, supposedly wrong. So I'm going to argue that maybe this editor beta reader I had maybe a little bit too anal. She also like pounced on my adverbs, and I'm like, Dudette, if I use an adverb, I mean to use it. I have read Stephen King's writing book just like all of us have, and even he has said that adverbs are fine, just be aware that you are using them and try to see if the sentence is stronger without them. Like, seriously, some of these people... I am not a big fan of people who like take a rule and just run with it as a rule and who don't ever question it. It's like, even if you don't like adverbs, and even if like they do tend to make just the sentence a little bit weaker, there are times when you want that. There are times when you don't want to sit there and show don't tell and write a whole paragraph trying to convey the tone of voice of the character. And so I reserve the right to say that sometimes adverbs are okay. Just gonna go there. So we're doing a lot of vertical here first. We will do a horizontal. However, most cloth, if you look at it, will have a weave one way or another, one direction or another. So if you look at your jeans, they've got mostly the weave that they're showing is vertical. For example. Also, my back's a little twitchy today, guys, so I'm probably gonna have to do a quick stretch break halfway through. Just tell you that right now, because it's like grumbling at me. That said, so up here near the top where I did put a highlight, I am going to come in and we're going to just stipple this. We don't have enough room to do little lines, so we're going to just try to do little tiny dots to suggest the texture. Adverbs usually are not advisable in fiction because they're lazy, Pendrake. They're essentially, they're overused by a lot of beginning writers, and often if you take the adverb out of a sentence, you'll actually find the sentence is stronger. And that you may be able, like, there may be, the tone is, like, unnecessary to elaborate on. Like, just that, you know, the situation that you're writing about actually tells you how the person probably said those words. Or maybe the words themselves are obviously sarcastic or whatever, yeah. So that. I do agree with the general theory. I do agree that adverbs are overused. I used to overuse them. But nowadays, when I use one, I always double check it afterwards. Both spellings are still in the Webster's Dictionary. Thank you, Grey Wolf. Well then. Yeah, maybe I won't use this. Because I tried this beta reader because she's actually an editor. But she also offers beta reading. And I already had a developmental edit on my book, as you all know. But there are some things that she's flagged me on, like the gray spelling and the adverbs, where I'm just like, you know what? No. I'm not going to change that. Right, yes. Yes, Quindy. That's a good point, Quindy. Yes, this is true. And adverbs do. And that's why taking adverbs out will tighten the sentence, right? Is, you know. Like, if my character asks, is your brain even bigger than a hamster's? I don't have to say that she's saying it rudely or snarkily. It's obvious from the question that she is, right? So adverbs that are like that, where I find adverbs helpful or where maybe there are several contexts for a statement being made by a character and you want to point out that they're like maybe saying it with some dry humor or whatever, you know, you want to kind of maybe tag that. But even then, like I'm pretty picky about my adverbs. They usually don't creep in. Yeah. Thanks, Pendrake. Yeah, just do a ping back. Quindy, actually, go ahead and do that. If you have time, if your work is not terribly thing, I would prefer Quindy to do it. Because Quindy, the reason for that is that whenever Quindy's in the chat, I typically my brain kind of flags it because, you know, mod, and sometimes she'll be like, hey, you're breaking up or whatever. So if Quindy could kind of give me a little bit of a stretch alert, stretch ping, that would be awesome. Yeah, let Quindy do it though, Pendrake, because it won't, then it won't have a ton of people in chat doing it, and my brain is wired to pay attention to Quindy. Like at this point, if Justin or John even talks in chat, I hardly notice. Right, yeah, then you get to real life, right, Quindy, right? Like I'm always actually dinging my dog people about that, right? My board members. There's one that comes from corporate America, and she likes to write essays in emails, and I'm like, you realize. It's so true. All right, so we've got our vertical weave set up, and that has given us a little bit of texture, and that's cool. You can also choose to do the crosshatch. You will lose a little bit. You do want to leave a little bit of your vertical texture. One thing I am going to do though, guys, is I am going to thin my creamy ivory a little bit. The texture there isn't fading in like I would like it to. I would like it to actually, I see the beginning of the lines a little bit too much. This is me. No, sounds would annoy me, Pendrake. I'm a very visual person. I'm not a terribly auditory person. And so I have just trained myself to look for Quindy. Like subconsciously even. I didn't like do it. I just realized the other day that it was a thing. All right, so this is still a little bit too much. I'm going to go back. And this is what happens when you get a lot of white in your paint, is it really covers well. And that's great if that's what you want. But when you're trying to like make something blend or fade in, then you're in trouble because you're like, oh, wait, you know, I can't make this. This is always just a huge, harsh line. What's wrong with it? So then the answer is usually to thin your paint more. Whites, at least Reaper whites, have the capacity to be thinned very, very thin. I don't know, Pendrake. I look for the Quindy. Like I don't even pay attention to icons at the front of a name. So maybe subconsciously my brain is looking for that. But I can't tell you what my subconscious brain does. Most of us can't. Subconscious brains are sneaky things. All right. There we go. So using the gnawed bone and thinning it down, I get a little bit of a better fade. A little bit finer texture. A little bit less bold of a line. Now, the thing is, when you go crosshatch here, you're going to lose this texture. So you have to ask yourself, am I okay with just like suggesting the vertical weave here? Which you may be. I mean, like I said, there's plenty of cloth that when you look at it, you can see a strong directional weave in just one direction. So your cloth's going to look okay just doing that. Otherwise, we have a, oh yeah, my lower back is really going today. Not good. Why is it this the day? Why is this the day we're having troubles? I have to travel tomorrow, and that's probably it. So now I'm going to go a little bit cross. And actually, it's good that I haven't painted these little eyelet things, because if I did, I would care about the fact that I'm streaking over the top of them. But I don't. So mostly I'm going to hit the bottom edge here pretty strongly. Then I'm going to try to do just a little bit of cross. Real lightweight. Kind of see how that is now a square, like a square pattern on here. And the harder you take it, the more you're just going to totally obscure your texture toward the bottom. And you'll only see it at the top. Now you can try to do this on a 28, but it's a lot more difficult because it really, like, unless it was a really rough woven cloak, you really wouldn't see texture at that scale. So textures at 28 may look kind of cool, but they're usually not actually in scale. People do them anyway because it's in vogue and people like to spice up their fabrics and their leather and all that kind of thing. So you can choose to do it. I'm not going to ding you on it unless it's really rough and terrible and then I'm like really out of scale. So if you're going to do a cloth texture on 28, make it real, like choose a model like Noli, right? Where his cloth is probably really burlap rough, right? So if I'm doing that, and notice I only did a single directional stroke, by the way, on him. This is key. But these dashes that give his cloth the texture, like you could totally see that any cloth this guy would be wearing would be super rough, and it's probably like burlap dyed or, you know, some really rough woven cloth that he ripped off of something, right? That's unraveling as we speak. So you can see the texture and the weave. So it makes sense on a figure like Noli to do that. But notice that on the pants, there is no texture. And that's purposeful. Like the pants, he probably took off of some like high class, you know, ship captain or second mate, who's, you know, they're all worn and ripped up now, but they weren't that, you know, they were pretty snazzy when they were new. So this is probably a much finer weave, and I'm not doing this. So you don't have to do texture on every piece of cloth on your model, especially at 28, because where it's only really suitable on certain models. Yeah, it's probably for buttons on the other side. I have no idea about all that's about, Shadow Raven, but my condolences. Hey, Noel's sneezed just like everybody else. All right. I'm actually going to take my stretch break, like, early. Hold on, everybody. I'm going to back out so y'all can look at a pretty picture while I am doing it. But my back is definitely twinging, and I need to pay attention to it. It says, twinge, twinge. Stand up and stretch. Or get down on the floor and stretch. So I'm going to do a quick stretch on the floor, and then I will be back. We ask questions if you want to while I stretch over. We are very silly humans, you're right. All right, I think that actually helped. Whew. Yeah, 10:30. Let's make it at 10:30, Quindy. Yeah, because it's a little better, but it's still twingy. I need to keep my posture good. So let's get close again, and let's see how close I can get here. There we go. So see those little crossy lines there. See how huge my brush is. You can also see I have permanent spinal degeneration, Grey Wolf, from all those years probably of lifting buckets, paint buckets. And just generally probably getting older. And mostly, honestly, my physical therapist of the past would have me believe that it actually is the fact that I've had terrible posture for most of my life, which is probably dead on. And my core has been very weak at certain points in my life. So now I work really hard every day on strengthening my core. And most of the time I got nothing. Most of the time I got no problems because of that, as long as I do my exercises. But because I was in a hurry this morning, I suspect I did my exercises too fast. And that was not something my back wanted. Yeah, I mean, just like with painting, you use a chair that maybe helps you be a little bit better. You guys know more normally you don't even hear about it these days. And you don't hear about it because my yoga and physical therapy stuff in the morning totally takes care of it. Like most days I have zero pain, zero problem. This is why I'm like very much a proponent of PT and yoga, because it works for me. It took the pain away. But Maybe. I mean, I did my first set just fine, Grey Wolf, but then when I was doing my crunches, I went a little faster. I probably just was a little bit too enthusiastic because I was trying to get him done faster. So they should have been warmed up a bit, but yeah, you know, who knows? I don't do any of that more extreme stuff until I've had my opening set, but you know, we're humans. Sometimes our backs are just like, blurg, blurg. I'm just hoping all my warranties have expired so that nothing weird and new happens on my 50th birthday. Like, I don't need another warranty to expire at this point. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it'll work itself out, especially with more stretching throughout the day. And if not, I have a prescription for muscle relaxers. So when I get really thin, see how I've thinned my paint a bit more now. See the difference between this, where you can barely see the lines coming in, and this, where you can definitely clearly see the start of every line. Now, if you back out, you can still see the difference. You can see that there's maybe a harsher line here, and there is a fade here. So this is how I like to paint. Like, this is an example. Like, I like it to look good at a distance, but still look good when you get close. So even though you can't see the texture necessarily right now as well, you can still see that it's there, and you can see that it's like smoother and less evident on the left. So when you want a smoother cloth texture, you gotta thin. Gotta thin more than you'd think. And I would recommend doing kind of test brush strokes on something else, like even just base coat a piece of paper with like a darker color, or in my case, I use the watercolor cardstock. And then take your paint and do some test brush strokes. Thin it a bit more, do some more tests, till you get it to the point where you like it. You also saw me start at about 2 to 1, and then I quickly went down to something that was closer to 1 to 1. If you're using pure white, you're going to have to go even thinner. All right. And one thing I am seeing is I really need to come back in with my lining along some of this too. But anyway, all right, so now I actually want to glaze a little bit. I'm going to grab some of my gnawed bone. I want to lose some of this heavy shadow at the top here because really this is all facing upward and we wouldn't have this big heavy shadow. So I'm going to build a glaze with the gnawed bone, which is mostly water with a bit of paint in it. It's kind of where you flip it on its head. So instead of like a 2 to 1, you're at like a 1 to 2, or sometimes even more, often even more, depending on the color. I want to lighten this shadow a bit. So I'm going to glaze over the top of it with this bone color. This is a spot glaze, so I'm not actually letting it pool, but look at how much that changed it. Look at how much it took that heavy shadow out. More on the outer edge. And I can be selective with my glaze. I can just put it near the bottom if I want. I can put it more toward the bottom and less toward the top if I want more of a fade. This is not thick enough to maintain any texture, but you can still like paint with it as if you were layering with it if you just want to fade in an edge a little bit more. So that's a lot more faded now. In fact, this looks like it's nice and smooth. We're just seeing a little bit of texture left over. This used to be a very harsh line of texture, and now we don't have it at all. Yeah, I could have slept funny too and not. I noticed some of my muscles were acting up this morning. Who knows? It's just the way it is. We just deal. But of course it's starting right when I'm going to travel tomorrow, right? So it's inevitable. It's the betrayal is sudden yet inevitable, as they say. Morning, Daffodwear. All right. So now I'm taking some pure white, and I'm going to do my same starting brush stroke, my vertical brush stroke, over the texture that I did before on the bottom. This is just to bring up that bottom edge. Now, for this area over here, which is still very dark, if I really want this to look white, I need to kind of look at it. I need to back out, kind of look at it, probably cover up this. It's looking more toward white, but it still doesn't look white, right? So I think I've got too much shadow here. So I'm going to glaze a little bit more there. No show tomorrow or Friday. I am in Wisconsin. Visiting the fam. Be flying out tomorrow. Which would be my first time on a plane since the mask mandate died. Which would be a kind of a relief. Because it's like a 4-hour flight or something. It's a long one. I'm going to have to bring lots of stuff to do. To download lots of videos and bring lots of stuff to work on. So I'm also using my layering to bring some of my cloth texture up over that dark shadow. The more of this dark shadow and the darker this shadow is that I leave on this area, the less it's going to look like white. The less it's going to read as white. Yeah, I was gonna actually bring yarn and start a practice swatch for switching colors. I'm at the point where I feel pretty confident, where I feel like my knit stitch is getting pretty consistent. I'm getting a better. I wanted to do just plain knit stitch for a long time until I figured out tension, because I held my yarn very tight at first. This is the way I learn. This is the way I deconstruct hobbies, including mini painting. Is I like to practice technique and get good at technique, and then worry about all the bells and whistles. Yeah, I did not practice Magic Circle last night. I actually got distracted because was talking to my puppy, my breeder, my puppy's breeder, and we were talking about puppy assessment systems, because I'm a certified evaluator using our Shiloh system. But there's this other system that she and I are really interested in that I got very excited about last night, so it totally distracted me. I don't have a lot of time in the evening after I do all my stuff for the day, so I really have to kind of pick and choose what I let myself get distracted by if I want to be productive on a given thing. Yeah, I guess I could just sit and do magic circles for 4 hours. I mean, that'd be something. But the thing about that, now the dangerous thing about that, is when you are doing something on a plane with seatmates that is at all weird or interesting, your seatmates will sometimes interject into your reality and decide that they have advice or questions or something, which I hate. I actually enjoy just sitting on a plane as if I'm a little blip in the middle of nowhere, and I prefer it when my seatmates mostly ignore me. So I don't know if I want to do knitting on the plane, because with my luck, I'll get some lady next to me or guy who's like really into knitting, and then they're going to make me feel like really just like too much. I take the most enjoyment out of discovering things my own way. And the last thing that I want is somebody who's an expert sticking their nose in when I didn't ask for it. So I'm the opposite of the hand holder. I'm like, you know, some people really want somebody with them every step of the way. I'm the exact, like, farthest end away from that you can think. Yeah, right, Critico, right? Yeah. Oh, make sure the tension isn't too tight. What the bleep does that mean? Yeah, you just have to get a feel for it. It's just like brushstroke. Like, it's like how, you know, how heavy or light a touch are you using with your brush is a lot like, you know, how much tension are you keeping in your yarn. I mean, I'm still learning to even hold the yarn in a consistent way, okay? So the thing about it is that I really enjoy just learning. So I like to just kind of puddle around with a new hobby all on my own. It makes me happy. So now I'm essentially erasing some more of this this shadow that I had on here. When I first did this, I was trying to go dark with my shadows on purpose for a reason. Because I wanted the texture to be able to stand out, for one thing. And I also know that I tend to not have as dark shadows as I need on light colored surfaces. Right, exactly, Kodiak. Yeah, I just read. Normally I just whip out my Kindle and I'm just reading. That's it. But yeah, last night I was reading about a puppy behavior system that's newer, that's been around, like a puppy evaluation system, temperament evaluation. And it's really like profiling for puppies. Like, it is honestly like personality profiling for puppies. It's really wild. I love it. All right, boom, boom, boom. All right, but the other thing is we don't want this to be as light as this one because remember we've got light. You know, but at the same time, if we look at this, if we take our light and we look at it and we back out, 1 second, put the hat on, back away from the mini. And then look, we see that although the light is coming in, we can see where it hits the like cheekbone and stuff, but we also see that this area is actually still pretty light. Like, the hat is not dark enough to really impact this surface. Although this area right here, I probably need to bring down just a little bit, maybe, because I can see maybe this might be a little bit darker. It's curving away from the light a little bit. If I put it, but I don't really see that. Like, if I really am looking at my light, I don't really see that this goes terribly dark. So really what I might want to do is highlight more here and make sure I bring this way up, but leave this at this level. Oh, man. Right, Cornico, yeah. Yeah, I can see that. That's kind of why I don't really want somebody else intruding into my space during flight. So I think knitting might be a problem that way. Because there are so many people who do it. There are so many people who have taken it up, who are better than I am, and I'm just a baby learner, and they've got no idea how I learn, and I've got no idea what level they're at, and, you know, so yeah, I think I'm just gonna wing it. So I'm gonna bring in my Shield Brown. Remember, that's one of the colors that we used to shade, and I'm gonna just actually take this down a little bit, and then take up the other side. Yeah, they're really, I mean, and I think that's fair. I mean, I like an in-flight screen. The only thing I ever do on the in-flight screen is, like, track the flight. Like, because I like to see the little plane move across the country. It's like an instant visual reminder of where exactly I am in the flight. 1 second. One thing we did add was Sticks Purple, so I'm going to add a tiny bit of Sticks to cool things down. There. So, and by tiny bit of Sticks, I mean not even a full drop. So I'm just using, like that. It's probably, if I had to break it down, it's probably a 6-to-1. But sometimes you don't want to put 7 drops of paint in if you're only going to mix a small shadow, so just guesstimate. So what I'm doing here is I'm adding a complementary color. And I'm doing a whole PDF on this for my Patreon this month. Yes! $5 tier. You are going to get a Patreon on mixing highlights and shadows. But the reason that I'm using purple here and it's a kind of a dark bluish purple, Sticks purple is that this brown has, you can see it's a very yellowy brown. And browns themselves are usually oranges, muted oranges, but this is a very yellowy brown, and so what's the complement of yellow is going to be purple. And for that matter, what's the complement of orange? It's going to be blue, and this is a bluish purple. So Sticks purple, being darker, but also a purple, lets me cool down this brown without adding black and losing kind of the pretty color of the brown. But I will be doing a PDF on this for the Patreon, patreon.com/paintingbig. We have over, it's almost 3.5 years now, I think, of material. Oh, goody, you have a pupper at the game. Nice. That'll be distracting. Nobody will get any gaming done until the puppy falls asleep. Until the puppy's like, you humans are boring. I'm gonna go sleep. I'm gonna put a glaze of that right over the top just to dull it down a little bit. And again, when you glaze, make sure there's no paint pooling on it. But if you're just using a little bit on your brush and you're essentially doing what I call a spot glaze, you're pretty good. Alrighty, so now let's bring up the other side except brighter, except I did have this fold here, this crinkle. So we'll see how we can play with this. Get my gnawed bone and see how much texture I can leave with it. I have thinned it down quite a bit. So now we're getting a lot more subtle texture out of it. Yeah, 60 pounds a good size pit bull. I went to the creamy ivory because I wasn't seeing as much texture. Some of them are, not all of them, Shadow Raven. That's a genetic predisposition. And it's something that you can see in very young puppies. If you assess the pups on how much they like to be touched, which definitely with different breeds and different individuals within the breed, that varies widely. And it depends on the breeding. Depends on the breeders and what they've bred for, right? And what the parents were like, of course, because genetic, but so if you breed 2 snuggle bunnies, you're probably going to get a bunch of snuggle bunnies in that litter. Critico, that's really funny. Hey, at least they were like all like entranced with your prowess. Also, they must have been terribly bored. Your game was more exciting. It's so funny. Humans are such like, we're so unintentionally nosy. Like, I find myself, like, I catch myself watching, like, looking what other people are watching, and I try very hard not to do so, because I feel like it's kind of, like, privacy, you know, kind of thing. But I will admit, I see how people unconsciously do it, and just decide, oh, screw it, you know, I'm going to watch this because it looks really interesting. I used to work on dog stuff on planes, but I would always get questions about, what are those beautiful dogs, you know? Yeah, I mean, I think they have been breeding for that because it's not a fighting breed anymore, right? And in fact, I think that the reputation, you know, the undeserved reputation of the breed, you know, I could see that breeders would be trying to get away from that if they wanted a better reputation for the dogs. So I could see why you've got a bunch of Snuggle Bunny pit bulls, but the other kind are still out there. But yeah, I can see why a good breeder would be breeding for snuggles. Breed for snuggles. Yes, lethal snuggles. Yeah, Mastiffs do, I think, I don't remember, I could be wrong about this, but I thought I read somewhere that Mastiffs do tend to be very physical, like, physical dogs. Which can make them really good service dogs for, like, support and balance. Because for that kind of work, you need a dog that likes to be touched, right? Wants to be close. And just like with people, there are dogs that really don't want it. Kiri didn't, she was not a touchy dog. Even with me. Like, she would come up and get scruffles and she would be happy, but it would be very limited. And she was always very conscious of space and body language. It's a funky thing. Dogs are really, they really are very individual in their reactions to that sort of thing, just like us. Get those little stitches to stand out. Yep, there's a whole book on that I own and have read cover to cover. How to tame a fox and how to wait, where's my fox book? Oh noes. Ah, there we go. I even have it right here on my bookshelf. Anybody interested in the process of domestication should pick up How to Tame a Fox and Build a Dog is the subtitle, by the way. How to Tame a Fox and Build a Dog. And that will talk all about what Crows and Bones is just talking about. It is the fascinating story, by the way, of the Russian fox breeding project. And how it started and how it somehow endured through various governmental and national changes. Thank you, Quindy. I'll do a quick stretch. They tend to get white spotting, Gene, and the red is a rarity with domesticated foxes, quote unquote domesticated foxes, Valandar. Like if you looked at that cover of that book that I just showed, the fox was white with black spots. They also get floppy ears and curly tails over time. All right. I'm going to do another stretch. Here, let's back out so that you guys can look at pretty pictures while there we go. Pretty model. Oh, wait, she's not focused. Wait. There, now she's focused. Yeah, just like with ferrets, Kariniko, they'll have you can get the scent glands removed, but they still have that, they're still that kind of, like, that's their species. So they're more of an outdoor animal, but you have to make sure that they have a pretty secure enclosure. And they have a lot of energy. There we go. Forward folds for the win. Kinda. I mean, like we were just saying, they still have like the smell, like you know, like even if you take scent glands out of your ferret always has that ferrety smell. It's like that with foxes. They have a particular scent. So they're not just dogs, but the domestication gene seems to activate and take them in a particular way. The really cool thing about this, Valandar, is that this project essentially proved that dogs could have become dogs in far fewer generations and far less time. than was previously thought. Before the fox experiment, and this actually has major repercussions, like for life sciences in general, but all the scientists thought that it took 10,000 years for dogs to become dogs. Then the Fox Project proved that it could have been 50 years. That's a huge difference. But when you focused breed for sociability and less fear of humans, you get these changes very, very quickly within an astonishingly few number of generations. It's really cool. Highly recommend the book. Oh yeah, I mean, that's just fox logic. Humans are weird, especially if the mama has a more of a feral bent, like she has she can't tolerate being too close to humans. Like she'll teach them that. Although if they have a different disposition, they may go the other way eventually, but all right, so bringing up the white now, kind of comparing it to the other side. My shadow's really dark here still, and I'm going to work with that to minimize it. I still don't want to lose sight of it. Sometimes I find that I have to put a darker shadow in just to remind myself, hey, there's a shadow here, and then I end up taking it much lighter, but at least I remember that it's there. Yeah, our cats are getting more like dogs, right? Because people want needy cats. They want a cat that's going to snuggle with them and act like happy when they come home, and people like that. And so then they select for that. And if they don't spay or neuter their cat, then they select for that genetically. But yeah, it's a fascinating thing. Like, the genetics of domestication. And the downside is, and maybe it isn't a downside for a lot of people, but one of the downsides is that your dog or your cat can lose some of the natural instincts that used to protect them. So, for example, and I don't remember the exact data on this, I'd have to look it up, but there's a significant portion of domestic dogs that no longer have an instinctual fear of snakes. So some search and rescue teams will have to essentially teach the dog to fear a snake so that the dog won't be bitten and die out in the wilderness where such things are present while they're working. But so some dogs have a natural aversion to it, but many don't. And I saw that in my own dogs. Dofresh, Zito, I do love to paint terrain. I have not painted terrain on stream for a long time, but I did one a long time ago when I did the base for Dragons Don't Share. And I use much bigger brushes. I use much less texture because it's a big rock. I think I have a big rock. I just did a video actually that I'm editing today for my Patreon. But I was just working on this big stone and making it look cool and organic. There's a model that goes on top of it, which is why that big shadow is there. But so I was working on this. So I'm using much rougher textures. I'm still introducing, there's greens in there, and there's like oranges in the stone. And so I'm still using a lot of different colors. And I'm going back in to bring out some of the texture on the stone, like I did down here where these pits in the rocks. But in general, you're painting with much bigger brushes, and you're trying to emphasize big shapes and coarse textures that you would really see. Usually that means using a lot of dry brushing or side brushing or stippling or, wet blend stippling, using bigger, more mass over the surface techniques. But I do love painting terrain. I just don't usually do it on stream. I did order the lighthouse for Bones 6, so when that eventually comes, perhaps I will do part of it on stream, or maybe I'll do all of it on stream. I do also have the big face, or the Yetis from the Past Bones 5. I suppose I could dig that out, but I think the lighthouse would be more fun. I thought everybody had a little bit of Neanderthal. I thought it was just really like 1 to 2% Valendar. And as you say, some cultures have more. But I thought it was behind everybody. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm a lot more up on dog genetics than I'm up on people genetics. I like the lighthouse because it has a lot of like different kind of like things you can do with it, and textures, and even adding like terrain bits to it. Like weathering and stuff like that. I was all excited for the. I actually have bought the. I have the lighthouse locked into my pledge, and it's not moving. But I'm debating on the dragon, the 30th anniversary dragon. So I'm gonna just take this gnawed bone and just do the real light streaking over the top to like give us a little bit more texture up close. See that? And I'm kind of letting my brush just kind of skip over the most shadowed part in the fold there, but I'm still getting the texture that I want through here. Notice how everything here is coming up much lighter than it is over here. Yeah, I scratch built terrain a long time ago, back when I was playing 40K and Fantasy and Mordheim with my game group at our local game store. But I don't know. I actually do. I'm one of those people who would always prefer to buy terrain, because it's a lot of work to build good terrain. And it's hard to build good terrain that's durable. If you're not like really into shop, and if you don't like I'm you know, using you can do basic stuff with like styrofoam and other things, but it's difficult to make it like really durable. And so I kind of didn't enjoy it. I very much prefer doing things like Reaper, buying a big terrain piece, painting it up, basing it nicely, and then, you know, just having a few of those. I still have a little bit more room for terrain. I have some very nice pieces of terrain. At this point, I think we could put together a pretty good, like a pretty close 4x4 table. But I'd have to make some stands of trees. That's the kind of terrain like that I think that I can make more like that I like better, is like if I have to make kind of like a hilly area with trees on it, I'll buy the parts and I'll like construct, you know, something like that. But I do enjoy the fact that several companies put out really beautiful terrain pieces, and even if I just buy one a year, I'm still gonna be able to put together, like at this point I could put together a pretty nice table if I had to. I love Mordheim, HM Road Dog. It is my favorite Games Workshop game of all time, and I adore it. I briefly ran a campaign at Reaper. I think it's a shame they dropped it, because it's a... I mean, Cursed City's kind of along the same lines, right? But they did a board game instead of... And then they didn't, like, keep that up. This is Games Workshop. But yeah, I really like Mordheim. I own the computer game, too, and it's close enough that it gives me, like, that Mordheim feel if I really, really want my Mordheim. Yeah, I'm glad the kid is still doing better. So I'm going to start bringing this up with more pure white now. Because she does have some notches and like tears in her outfit, I am definitely going to keep some of this more dirty color in here, just because it seems like, you know, she's a bit weathered herself. And whenever I'm putting highlights on, I am keeping to the brush stroke, the textured brush stroke that I started with. And now, just for fun, just to give you an idea, with stuff up here, we don't like spend nearly as much time. So I'm going to be stippling. So like, it's not worth doing texture work on any of this stand-up collar. Not really. There's not a lot of it. Most of it's in shadow. Really, we just have to kind of suggest that it's there. Pick up some highlights. Use stippling in this case to suggest some texture on the edge. So you can see the little dots that I'm leaving. I don't know, not being like using CC. So just doing some little dots here, just to suggest that there's kind of an interrupted or soft edge on the collar. Now actually here I need to redark that because I realized, oh no, this is the problem with having everything be dark, is I forget what's actually in shadow, and this is actually in shadow. But that's fine. Having a little bit of a highlight over there is fine. It just can't come up as much as the other side. Then once we get out from under the chin, I can come in with a bit more. So by this time in 2 weeks, my puppy should have been born, and you all will be able to see newborn puppy pictures. So cross fingers, please, everybody, that there is at least 2 girls. I want choice. I like choices. Yep, you guys get the pup dates too. Bridget is a pretty crazy pup dater. Like, it's part of why I decided to get a puppy from her. She tries to post something every day or two. And for some people that would be overkill. A little bit too much paint on my brush down there. I'm trying to like just create a little bit of a stipply texture for a highlight through there. But I went a little bit too much paint and it made puddles. Puddles are bad. Like, we do not want puddles when we're trying to do textures. We want very little paint on the brush so that we can do just kind of a little bit of texture on the side here. I'm not being real persnickety about it because it's like vertical. It wouldn't be getting that much light. But I want a little bit. I want to show that I actually paid attention to this area. I closed my window, but the environment is still attacking me. I must have filled the room with tree mung before I started. There we go. Right. Well, there is such a thing as the breeder being exhausted for the first couple weeks. So I think there are definitely too many. Although they change so much in the first week too. Puppies do. They come out just being little beans, and then by the end of week 1, they're a lot more mobile, and they've grown so much, and then usually around day 7 to 12, you get the eyeballs opening up. Then you get little eyeballs. Your puppies can see very badly, but they can see. One thing we could do if we really want to is to take our pure white and suggest little stitches, like little stipples on this line here. See how I put those in? That's kind of just to suggest like stitches there. You can get away with that. It's a little tiny thing that most people won't notice. But I still think it's a nice touch sometimes. This is where I get into like Easter eggs, where I'm like, if I pay attention to some of these fine textures, but, you know, and most people don't, but then when they do look closely, they see that I actually have put in like a stippled, like stitched line there, then that's like something they're going to go, oh, wow, you know, I like that. I like that, oh, wow thing. I like getting that. So I tend to pay close attention to micro detail, because then when you pick up my model and you just look closer and then you look closer and then you look closer, and you can always see something new. And that's what I really like. Oh, wow. Lots of rain. We wish that would be a nice help to our drought right now. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, so you made like tea ice. You made actual ice tea, but not iced tea. But maybe it is iced if it's made into ice. I don't know. I'm going to give up on that, Pendrake. It's up to you. You name it. Alrighty, let's see here. So remember to keep the stuff that's in the shade a little darker and stuff that's out here lighter. Could be just a harder base on that. Could be that their blacks are actually powder coated. I mean, I don't think so, but I mean, could they? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, if it's still reacting, but just not as strongly, it's just probably a harder, more durable base, which I would expect with metallics, because you want the clearest, hardest base you can get for metallics. This is true in both water-based and in solvents. So probably it's just you're looking at a very durable paint. Oh, that's a good idea, Grey Wolf. Are you supposed to dip your biscuits in that? Yep. Iced tea is for people who like cold drinks and they like caffeine in their cold drinks. So just think of iced tea as like a non-carbonated caffeinated soda. That's the way I would use it. Gonna start going across here with some texture again. Got 8 minutes till alpacas invade. The alpaca invasion. It'll be a thing. So if I want to lighten up these shadow areas just a little bit, I can either do a general layering stroke for it, or I can glaze. I do not want to bring it up too heavily, and I don't want to use too much texture because a recessed area wouldn't necessarily show texture as much as the raised area. I'm going to get my glaze out, make sure that it's still at a good consistency. Bring this area up. Now I do have some pooling fluid here, so I'm going to rinse out my brush, dry it off real quick, come back and take that extra liquid out of there. Otherwise it will dry funny. Yeah, and they liked ice, or at least cold mint tea in Egypt, don't they? Like in the Middle East in general, isn't that a thing? Like the mint teas? Like, isn't that why it's Moroccan mint tea? Just going to do a little bit of sideways texture here. Yeah, it's supposed to be nice here today. I mean, low 80s, 82. I think it's going to be a very nice day for my last day here before I go up to Wisconsin. And David got most of our patio furniture, our new back patio furniture put together. He's very good at that. He says it's like Legos. So we'll have new back patio, and we just need an umbrella. Patio umbrella. But I like our back patio furniture. We wanted to get it before the pupper came so that we could hang out, because I'm going to want to hang out in the backyard with the pupper. My only problem with iced coffee is that, like, if you order it, you're paying mostly for a bunch of ice. So I always order hot coffee, then let it cool, and then ice it myself. That way I'm not paying for a bunch of water. All right, so this lapel doesn't have a sharp crease in it, so I'm blending that up. We've got a deep dip here. Want it more light over here. Just kind of moving across the model at this point, trying to, and I'm slowly going to tune it to where it's lighter on this side and leaving it darker on this side. It's kind of moving that direction already. Yeah, I freeze in anything below 50 degrees too. All right, and some of this, like this fold, should maybe be a little bit lighter because the light is coming at that angle. So we want to glaze that maybe a little bit more. Oh, we got 3 minutes. 3 minutes before the imminent alpaca invasion. News at 10. All right. So just brought that up just a little bit. Painted some of my gnawed bone over the top of it so that the crease on this side is heavier and the crease on this side is lighter. You can really see it. Holidays in Florida. Yeah. Because you were distracted enough and you probably spent a lot of time in the swimming pools, Kerniko, or the ocean, depending on where you were. I was always excited when it got hot in Wisconsin because that meant I could ask Mom if we could go to the beach. She was always like, not unless it's over 80. And so I would sit there and I would watch the thermometer. And the minute it like crept up to almost touch 80, I would be like, Mom. Woohoo. All right. So let's just do a couple more little highlights on this side with our white and our creamy ivory mixed together, and then we will hand it over to the master lord of all alpacas, who, because I am so conscious of his coming today, I'm certain will be late. Maybe I'm wrong. But he hasn't popped up in the chat to taunt Quindy yet. Usually he does. All right, so just getting some little bit of textures in here, and we will, yeah, queuing in theme parks for water rides, I hope. All right, so I can see that this side is lighter, and I can see that this side is darker, and that's what I'm aiming for. It probably will be, right, exactly, just because I'm like actually conscious of, it's Luca time. Luca, where are you? But so we worked on the white today and we actually brought it up significantly. So it's actually reading more like white. In fact, if I like totally painted everything else black and we didn't have this pale block under it, it would read, yeah, there we go. If I hold the block out of the picture, you can see that it is reading a lot more white, especially down here on the bottom. I haven't brought this fully up yet, so yeah, he raided us. This is typical Pendrake. He'll raid us, then he'll take a break, then he'll come back. Supper, he's in Europe. Yeah. So we bring this up a little bit more. But yeah, so it's reading as near white, which is good. It doesn't have to be super bright white, but I do want it to actually like be a neutral and not be that purpley beige color anymore. So I have some work to do over here with probably the gnawed bone, which is as high as I will bring these things up. And then we'll bring everything in here up to pure white. And we have to deal with a little bit on the other side of this because even though it's in shade, chances are light would pass through a cloth like this. So there would be some transmitted light for us to highlight on this side. But yes, so I don't know, any questions? I'm gone for a few days, just to remind y'all. I'm going to sit here and highlight feathers while I wait for Luca. Okay, are we ready? Almost. Yeah, do keep in mind I will not be here for the next 2 days. I will be back on Monday when we will resume with our pink and purple wizard. I'm going to be hanging out in Wisconsin, trying not to be allergic to the whole state, which is difficult because I am. But unlike in California, which just makes me sneeze, Wisconsin actually makes like my eyes run and stuff. It's very annoying. Oh, I've been to Ohio too. Indiana actually. Indiana almost killed me one summer. I was there for a puppy evaluation, and the breeder rented old fairground buildings, And I swear that those things probably had so much mold in the AC system. The minute the AC went on, I was dying. Like, I could not stay inside for more than 3 minutes. It was without, like, just, like, nose running, eyes running, just awful. Like, I know I have sensitivity to mold, so I'm pretty sure that that's what was going on. I was useless. It was a good thing there was another evaluator because we were doing 2 different litters. So she ended up doing a lot of the later stuff when I was rendered helpless by the horrible AC. But yeah, the Midwest, it's just nowhere I want to live anymore. I grew up in Wisconsin. That's cool and all, but yeah. Yeah, it's family. Yeah, I had to essentially go outside. Like, I would go outside, I would walk around for 10 minutes, and it would disappear, it would dry up, right? Slowly. I would get better. I would get to the point where I felt like I could function. The minute I went back in, it would start getting worse and worse and worse, and 5 minutes later, I'd have to leave. Like, it was just like I was done. And it didn't happen during the day when we hadn't put the AC on yet, because it wasn't terrible. But then during the day, when it had finally heated up, we did, and yeah, it was just bad. So, the Midwest in general doesn't like me. All right, do we have an alpaca lord yet? Dang it. All right, it's about 5 after. What is it? How about it, Quindy? Do we have an alpaca lord? Should I go? Should I stay or should I go? Should I stay or should I go now? I'm gonna sit here and like highlight my happy feathers. Notice how dirty they are. I'm gonna keep them pretty dirty too. She's just beat up enough that I feel like she's not gonna wash her feathers. If I stay, there will be double. So you gotta let me know. All right. The Lord of Alpaca. It just was inevitable. It was inevitable that since I was so aware that he was going to be along, he would be late. And then next time, when I'm totally not aware, he'll pop in 3 minutes early. And I'll be like, ah! I like to bring out the tips of that feather. I've been hoping that maybe he'll just come in and save my back from its torment. But this is probably naive of me. Also, I'm enjoying highlighting these little feathers because they're fun. Feathers are fun. See, aren't they pretty? There we go. Yeah, Bones USA is significantly different. It's closer to like the detail on Bones USA is equivalent to detail in metal. Like, it's really good. But it's still plastic and less expensive than metal. It's made with a process called Cyocast, which is a company that produces a particular type of machine I don't think it's PVC. It's injected plastic. But I don't think it's PVC. I think it's different. Anyway, maybe the Bones USA page will tell you exactly what you need to know. There. Yay, feathers. But yeah, hopefully that helps, heel flips. It is really good stuff. I like Bones USA a lot. Man, that Luca. Yeah, I painted him. I have him, heel flips. Hold on. Do-do-do. So there you go. He paints up real nice. I did freehand on mine, but you don't have to. But yeah, so they're good. They're good casts. I try to use Bones USA whenever possible on stream now because I really just like working with them. It's good stuff. Ah, finally, man! I'm all ready to hand it over to you. Like, you know, like 9 minutes ago, Luca. 9. But that's okay. We got to put more detail on our feather, so we're good. But hooray for pizza. You're despicable. Hey, Kariniko, maybe we should knit Luca a tiny little stuffed alpaca amigurumi made out of alpaca hair. Because there's alpaca yarn. There's even baby alpaca yarn. Oh, they forgot some toppings. Oh my gosh. Incompetent pizza people. What are you going to do? But yes, now whenever I see alpaca anything, I think of Luca. You have alpaca yarn? Yeah. Isn't it illegal to be incompetent at pizza? But is Luca, are you Italian? I wasn't sure if you were one of those crazy Spaniards or if you were one of those crazy Italians. Which one are you, Luca? I don't want to say the wrong thing. Yeah, alpaca yarn is very soft, you're right. It's not at all despicable, although it is extremely warm apparently. You're Italian, okay. Yeah. Well, I didn't know. So you're not one of those wacky Spaniards then. That's good. There's enough of those wacky Spaniards. So you're one of the Italians. Well then. Would you say, hey Luca, I've got a question for you on style just because I'm a dork and I'm here. And my brain has squirrel syndrome today. So would you say that your style is similar to the general, like what you would call an Italian miniature painting style? Or would you say that the Italian style in general, as opposed to you, that yours is different or that theirs is like, you know, a little bit different? Like, do you feel like your style really emulates the Italian painting style or do you feel like that the Italian painting style is different from yours? He doesn't do the punching enough. So I'm just curious because I'm not like, I feel like I have a good grasp of the Italian painting style and the Russian painting style and the French painting style. Or sorry, I have a good grasp of the Spanish and the French and the Russian, but I don't know that I have a good grasp of the Italian style. Don't like the Italian style. Too focused on smooth blends and freehand. Oh, okay. All right. They'd like me. Although I do a lot of texture now, so that's not necessarily true. Okay, interesting. All right. Cool. Well, then I'll put that bink in my back of my head. So now I have a reference point when I look at Italian paint jobs. Thanks. I love analyzing style. Like, I just love looking at different painter styles and different nationalities and seeing the evolution and how people do things. Neither Spanish nor Italian. Oh, yeah. I think all of us, like, who've been painting for any length of time, we kind of just steal stuff from each style that we like. Yeah, I mean, and it's a good thing to study different styles too, right? So you can get a grasp on what you really like or don't like. Italish. Spanian. I don't know what that is. Oh, your girlfriend is Spanish? Okay. But yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I don't know what I am. I'm just a weirdo. Painting like anime figures, like giant chibi miniatures. I don't know. All right. Hey, that's fair, man. Anybody made a book on the history of miniature painting? No, and well, okay, yes, but not specifically like there's a book on the history of toy soldiers, and the painting of that prophecy, but there isn't really a book on the modern miniatures industry and the evolution of it from, say, like the 80s onward. You dork. Quindy, fist shake at him and let's get him out of here. Let's get out of here. Don't ban me, Quindy. But yeah, George R. R. Martin actually told me he wished that I would do that book, that I would create that book. And I'm like, George, that is not my passion. Like, you need to hire somebody else. But anyway, on that note, everybody, yay, we painted some white today. We did some textures. Yeah, that's what I mean, it probably would sell if somebody did that book, right? It probably would work. But it's not my passion, so it's not my passion project at the moment. Maybe someday it will be, or maybe somebody will beat me to the punch. It's going to be a lot of work, so I kind of hope somebody beats me to the punch. Yes, I will be in Wisconsin tomorrow, and the next day I will not be here. So I will see you all on Monday when we will resume. And have a fun stream, Luca. Off we go. Have a great one, everybody. I'll talk to you later.